From Radio Row at Winter Meetings, it is the Banner Baseball Show. Paul Mancano and John Meoli live on a Tuesday in December. John, we are in sunny Orlando. Haven't seen the sun for days, hours, so it doesn't really matter to us.
Yeah, and it's like nobody wants to hear this. It's pretty cold in this room we're in.
Yeah, nobody wants to hear this at all. This is a sunless, windowless room, and this is a very cold, very chilly room. But you know what? We're in a warm climate technically, so we have to enjoy it.
Yeah, it's very nice out. I did an interview like outside today.
Yeah. How'd it go?
Just felt very like winter meetingsy.
Yeah.
For those who aren't watching, I just did a little like shot, chill bro sign.
Chill bro sign. What have you ever seen in your entire life a collection of more quarter zips?
No, I was in the lobby last night talking to someone about something, and someone asked me, that's very vague, not purposely, didn't need to be vague, but someone asked me like who I was referring to, and I said over there in the quarter zip. Or it was like,
that's not going to help at all.
Yeah, and they were like, who do you know over there? I was like, all the ones in the quarter zip. That's what it was. So really, there was like 5 people standing around. It was like Albert has and some people with the Orioles and people who I didn't know. And everyone who I did know who was with the Orioles was wearing a quarter zip.
Yep. It's kind of I specifically didn't wear it. Bring a quarter zip because I just didn't want to play that game. I don't want to be the guy in the quarter zip. Yeah. I'm just the guy in the plaid shirt now. John is perhaps the best dressed man here at all of Winter Meetings. He has pulled off some unique fits, but we're not going to talk about fits. We're going to talk about fits on the Orioles. We're going to talk about who fits on this roster.
Anyone.
And it's clear that the Orioles are taking anyone and everyone. They are doing their due diligence. They are connected to a lot of names. We're going to talk specifically about bats because I know Orioles fans have been clamoring for pitching for quite a while, but we don't care because the talk of the town has been the Orioles' interest in bats. And it's something that we talked about, John, on our last episode where we were talking about, well, if you could have the possibility of signing an elite premier free agent bat, somebody in the ilk of Pete Alonso, Kyle Schwarber, Cody Bellinger, Kyle Tucker, you do what you can to rearrange your roster around those guys. And very early in Mike Elias' media availability yesterday, he was asked about how an impact bat would fit into his roster. And he said, quote, "We're talking to a whole bunch of hitters, and we just view it as, do they improve the team? Do they improve the roster? Do they raise the ceiling of the team? Do they have an impact? If the player is good enough, we can figure out ways to accommodate them, mostly in free agency, but sometimes in trades, guys that we view as impact bats." I looked directly at you across the hotel room, John, because that's exactly what we said on our last episode of the Banner Baseball Show.
Yeah, and when I followed up on that and asked Mike, like, is this uncomfortable for you because you have followed your grocery list for like 2 or 3 off seasons in a row? You need a right-handed hitting backup catcher. You got the best one that you thought you could, which is Gary Sanchez. You need a right-handed hitting outfield. You get Tyler O'Neill. This is different, and he acknowledged as much, but he also said that you need to kind of be able to do what they're doing now, which is try to upgrade everything if you want to upgrade it all. And there's some stuff you might be uncomfortable with in terms of what's going to be the other dominoes to fall. You can't predict your ability to trade someone, and the only thing you can predict about that is that you will not be able to trade somebody for as much as you want to get for them if everybody and their mother knows you are trading for them. But that is something they just have to be okay with. It can't be about like winning every deal or getting the best value. Now you're talking about needing to get this team better, and by doing what they seem to be doing, which is trying to sign one of the top bats out there, that is this pursuit.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear that the Orioles have been attached to starting pitchers, and they should be attached to starting pitchers, and I think the Orioles still view that as their top need. Our own Andy Kuska, the Baltimore Banner, reported that the Orioles have expressed particular interest in right-handed pitcher Tatsuya Imai, right-handed pitcher Michael King, and left-handed pitcher Ranger Suarez. The Orioles still would like to get a top-line pitcher, whether it be in free agency or trade. But the interesting thing here is that Mike Elias is interested in bats, and that is probably 2 or 2B on his list. MLB.com reported that the Orioles were one of the teams to meet with Pete Alonso here at Winter Meetings. Have you seen him walking around at all, John?
I have not.
We have to bring out some binoculars, perhaps, and try to find the polar bear. The puns that super agent Scott Boras was making about Pete Alonso were just eye-rolling, cringing. It's just all of the above.
I'm sorry I missed it.
You missed quite a scrum. And then they were also interested in Kyle Schwarber. According to our own Andy Kuska, he said that the Orioles were part of conversations for Kyle Schwarber among other teams. Before about an hour ago, Kyle Schwarber came to terms with the Philadelphia Phillies on a 5-year, $150 million deal. And John, we talked last week about how, the Orioles need to view this offseason as just getting better. They need to view this as acquire talent and fit everybody else around them. You use the analogy of the Orioles shouldn't be looking for an end table. They should be looking for a new couch.
Yeah.
You buy a new couch and then you rearrange all the rest of the furniture in your house around that.
And your room is better and you like the room better by virtue of doing that.
By virtue of doing
you
that.
You don't have the same room anymore.
Exactly. And some of these players on this list, Kyle Schwarber was one of them. He's off the board. I think Kyle Tucker is another one. And I think Pete Alonso is a third one of guys that would be a brand spanking new couch. They would take some rearranging of the rest of the furniture around them. But when you have a couch that can anchor your room and you can sit down and watch a game and enjoy lavishly, your new furniture.
Yeah.
That's something that you do.
You do it and you don't worry about it. And, to extend the analogy, it's like, you can always tell yourself, I'm going to sell this other couch on Facebook Marketplace and maybe you'll get money for it. Maybe you will just get a bunch of weird messages. Like maybe you'll just end up calling a hauler and dumping it and get rid of it. Like that doesn't matter if you make the upgrade that you want. And, in terms of Schwarber, that I feel like when we talked about it earlier in the offseason, that felt the most outside the realm of possibility because he's an older right-handed hitting DH. Left-handed hitting DH who's just going to clog up that spot. And the Orioles, you can't look at this team. You will give yourself a headache looking at this team and figuring out how they fit in any hitter without getting rid of hitters or what it means for so-and-so. But you can't really say with two catchers that signing an every DH would make sense. And they were still in the mix for it. And that's all you need to know about this offseason.
Right.
They did not sign him. He signed with the Phillies. I think everybody kind of thought that was what was going to happen until the Orioles sign someone like this. They are going to be the team that gives good offers and
gives the agent leverage.
And gives the agent leverage. And they are going to be the patsy in these situations until they aren't.
Forever the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah. And
all the analogies.
And it's got to be incredibly challenging for people listening to this, watching this, who are hearing them, we are, I guess, giving them credit for being in the mix on this and being in the mix on these big time hitters. But there's only one team wins and it's like a 0-sum game. Everybody loses if the other one team wins. And I think this is a recognition. I'm going somewhere with this. I'm trying to go somewhere. At least that they're doing this is a recognition that they have to do something big.
Yeah.
And if they close off this corner of the market or that corner of the market because it's not a need and they don't execute what they do want or do need, you're going to end up with a real problem on your hands because it will be another offseason where people are disappointed. And I don't think they really care about that as much as people think. I know they care about it more than they have.
Yeah.
Because they got to sell tickets. They got to do this stuff. And this pursuit kind of speaks to how they know it needs to be different.
Yes. They're acting certainly with more urgency than we have ever seen them act with. The Kyle Schwarber one, like you said, John, would be not only not a need, but it would actively create problems with two guys that you want to get regular at-bats. It would actively take at-bats away from Adley Rutschman, who is not going anywhere unless something earth-shattering happens. Adley Rutschman's going to be on this team next year. They want him behind the plate, and they want him taking up a lot of at-bats at DH when he is not behind the plate. And Samuel Basallo, who they believe can be a top-tier hitter from the left side and who is still growing defensively. Yeah. Those two guys are going to take up a lot of at-bats at DH. before you even throw in anybody else that you want to take off their feet. I mean, we've seen Gunnar Henderson be used in that DH spot. We've seen Tyler O'Neill be used in that DH spot. Who knows what his future is, but that having that DH spot open is a nice benefit for a team because you can rotate guys in and out of that. And for a team that is trying to have their two catchers get in as many lineups as humanly possible, that is going to be a benefit for them. So the Kyle Schwarber fit didn't make quite as much sense. But I do want to talk about the Pete Alonso fit because the Orioles have two right-handed hitting first basemen as it is. They have Ryan Mountcastle, who they just tendered a contract to. One more year of team control for him. They have Kobe Mayo, 24-year-old former top prospect. Neither of those guys should impede them from signing Pete Alonso, in my mind. Pete Alonso is not a great defender at first base. You can throw him at DH when you want, but he's going to play a lot of your games at first base. He's going to take a massive contract. He's also going to hit 40-plus homers.
Yeah.
Potentially 50-plus homers. And to have somebody in the middle of the lineup who can take the pressure off of Gunnar and Adley and Westberg is going to be such a benefit for this team, to the point where if you sign him, you move Ryan Mountcastle or Kobe Mayo in order to get Pete Alonso in the lineup 160 times.
Yeah, you do that, and you don't worry about it once it's your problem. I think, to that same point, the fact that they're doing it, there's years when if there was a Pete Alonso type and they had young players that they liked in that spot, they wouldn't be doing this. Maybe they would be doing it like kicking the tires, but like
I can't imagine them doing it. So 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. They've been all about clearing out space for the young guys.
Yeah. I mean, they're free agents for a long time. We're like, let's sign a 1-year infielder until our infielders are here.
Yep. Rugnet Odor.
Yeah.
Chris Owings.
Yeah, Adam Frazier. People got mad about that, but you know, he was fine. It's just because I guess what's the flip side? We're talking about Kyle Schwarber, and you know, if they need. What if Samuel Basallo doesn't really have a good year, and then you're counting on him to? If you have Kyle Schwarber, that's kind of okay,
right?
If you doesn't like kick on from what he was doing in September, that's okay.
Yeah,
you are not in a worse spot. You are in a better spot if he ends up being as good as you think he is. You're not in a worse spot if you have these guys. That's
you can option 22-year-old or 21-year-old Samuel Basallo to the minors if he's struggling, and it, in theory, shouldn't kill his development or kill his confidence.
Yeah, and I think I think this time last year, when as the offseason progressed, I think I wrongly ascribed what they were doing as like floor and reinforcement, like because the floor ended up
we were all duped.
We ended up in the basement. The floor collapsed. You landed on the concrete. We're like, what the heck just happened? But this is like a more sturdy version of that. Like if you have Pete Alonso, you don't have to sit here, holding a candle in your hand, hoping that Kobe Mayo can be 75% of Pete Alonso. You just have Pete Alonso. And that is incredibly valuable. Having young players on cheap contracts is valuable. Having good players who are just going to go in there and bang for 6 months, like, that's valuable too.
Yeah, and I think back to even last year when the Orioles didn't plan their offseason around Heston Kjerstad, but Heston Kjerstad was part of their designs, their brand designs. I mean, part of the reason that they were okay in losing Anthony Santander is they expected Heston Kjerstad to be a power bat from the left side.
Yeah.
I mean, he was firmly in their plans, and things could not have gone more poorly. And so the Orioles this year, I mean, I think they showed themselves as well by tendering a contract to Ryan Mountcastle. Now, that doesn't mean they can't trade him. That doesn't mean they can't, sign somebody over him.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. But they were clearly not saying, all right, we've seen enough from Kobe Mayo that we're just going to hand him the job at first base. That maybe a year or two ago, that might have been what they would have done. But this team is saying, no, let's not just let a good player go because we are so confident in our development of young 24-year-old Kobe Mayo. There's a chance Kobe Mayo plays on this team next year and is not good. There's a good chance that he breaks out, but then guess what? You had Ryan Mountcastle and you have Kobe Mayo, or you have Kobe Mayo and you have Pete Alonso.
Yeah.
You get as many good players as you possibly can. You don't have to clear the deck for the young guys the way that you did in the past.
Yeah, and I think this is also kind of an acknowledgement. I'm not saying that there's not like players on the horizon, but the next handful of like impact big leaguers that come from the Orioles system are going to be on the mound. Like the hitters right now are what they have. Maybe somebody from this draft class moves super fast. I don't really think they're going to be in the business anymore of moving guys super fast. I don't think I would be stunned if any of the 25 draftees ended this year in Norfolk like Colton Cowser would have, or Dylan Beaver, many guys. Colton Cowser, I think Jordan Westberg went 3 levels.
Right.
People have done that. I don't think they do that anymore. So if you are not going to be sitting there with your board for 2-3 years out saying, "Oh, we're gonna have an everyday second baseman in the mix in 2027. Let's not go crazy," or we're gonna have our everyday right fielder. Let's not go crazy. Like they're not going to do that.
No.
They don't really have the reason to, and that is just as helpful as all the underperformance that made this happen. Like when you have Adley Rutschman, when you have Gunnar Henderson, you don't need to worry about signing guys for those positions. When you don't have those guys, granted they have a ton of talent in the big league lineup as it is. When they don't have those guys to be like, "Oh, well, we got this. We don't need to go out and we have it at home."
Right.
They don't have to have that thought anymore.
Yeah. Let's talk about Alex Bregman because, John, you've toyed with the idea of the Orioles signing Alex Bregman for 2 off seasons in a row now, and he is a free agent yet again. He plays third base. He hasn't played any position other than third base since 2022 with the Astros. Last year with the Boston Red Sox, hit 273, 18 homers, a 128 OPS plus on 114 games. He's a 3-time All-Star. He is a 2-time World Series champ. The only way, to me, that you could possibly fit somebody like Alex Bregman into this team is I guess 2 ways. One, if you move somebody like a Jackson Holliday or Jordan Westberg in a trade, that's not happening. The only other way that I could see them fitting him is if you play Alex Bregman at third base, you move Jordan Westberg to second, and you move Jackson Holliday to the outfield. That, to me, would take a lot of maneuvering. It would take a lot of patience, and it would take a lot of development. Jackson Holliday was not a natural second baseman. He picked up that position because Gunnar Henderson was at shortstop, and Gunnar, I need more coffee. And he just needed a spot to be on the diamond. Second base made the most sense, and he's still growing at that position. He's still not a Gold Glove caliber fielder there. If you were to add another position to his repertoire, and sure, on paper he could play center field, but that's just asking a lot of somebody who just turned 22 to all of a sudden shift to the outfield in order to accommodate Alex Bregman.
Yeah. I mean, I think if they were toying with that, they would have already thought about it. I mean, but again,
we haven't gotten any inkling that the Orioles are interested. He's never played a game there, anything like that.
Yeah. It feels like something that you would just kind of take as, if you needed to, but
would you rather have Jorge Mateo or Jackson Holliday in a game in center field in a pinch?
We have executed the talk about Jorge Mateo goal of this podcast every single time. Jackson Holliday. We'll go Jackson Holliday.
Wow. A position he's never played.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not? I'm sure you can figure it out. I like the idea. I like the idea a lot. I think the left side of the infield is one that they would be the most remiss to. I think catcher and the left side of the infield are probably the ones that they would be like, we don't need to do this. Unless they're getting crazy with it. Like if we're talking about adding a non-first base infielder, then I think there would be such large ramifications of like what they're trying to do otherwise that would be its own different podcast.
Trying to get my microphone to work here. Is it stuck? Okay.
There
we go. Sorry about that. That one would again require a seismic shift.
Yeah.
Like the Kyle Schwarber signing, an Alex Bregman signing would require just so many pieces being moved around, which is why, to me, we talked about him on our last episode, the best fit of all of these big bats available in free agency is still Kyle Tucker, because there are just more questions in the outfield. Do you really expect Colton Cowser to be healthy and productive for an entire season? Do you really expect anything at all from Tyler O'Neill? Is he even going to be on this roster going forward? Do you expect anything from Dylan Beavers? Or do you not want to bank on somebody who is young and still mostly unproven? Kyle Tucker might take the most money of all of the guys that we're talking about. Between Pete Alonso and Alex Bregman and all these guys, Kyle Tucker could take a lot of money. We haven't heard much on Kyle Tucker recently, and I think it's probably because he's going to sign I don't know. I would imagine maybe some of these other guys signed before him.
Yeah.
But Kyle Tucker is still the most seamless fit of any of these big bats. And once you get past that tier, you're talking about a lot of guys who are maybe good hitters in the big leagues, but not somebody that you want to reshape your roster around.
Yeah. And I think I think in, again, a totally different podcast if we're trying to do it, but like I think the more this offseason goes on and they put it into like the water supply that they need someone like that, that then you talk about is that where they go for a trade? Maybe they sign 2 big pitchers and trade for the big bat instead of, I've kind of arrived at like 1 pitcher, 1 hitter in free agency and then 1 pitcher in trade. Maybe
Yeah, me too.
Maybe the math changes on that. But
they have 3 moves. I mean, it's really 2 pitchers, 1 hitter.
Yeah.
And I've always imagined it like 2 signings and 1 trade. And that might not be how it works out, but that's how it works out in my head.
Yeah. And I'm of 2 minds of this. Like, I think Taylor Ward's like pretty good player who doesn't fit this criteria of what we're talking about. But they added him and he's going to be he is a stable producer, even if he's not like necessarily going to stabilize his outfield picture.
Right.
But I think the more that they are opening the door to the idea of signing one of these top hitters, the more it makes sense. The more you think about it, the more it makes sense. You're like, okay, maybe they do need this. And it's really, really challenging to think of an off season where they don't add one or don't do something. And I think when you put yourself in that position, this is all an expectations game, and they've created the expectation that they're going to do this. And that means even doing it to a lesser extent than you thought you would is going to be disappointing if they don't.
Yeah. I mean, this is the most bullish we've heard Mike Elias talk. He said yesterday, we have room to make multiple more moves. He said, you can continue to use the no financial constraints line.
Yeah.
He said the payroll right now is significantly lower than it was last year. Yeah. So they have room to make those kind of moves. If you're talking about a trade, it's obviously tougher to predict trades because you don't know exactly who's going to be available, exactly what it would take to get that guy. One guy I do have circled here. I'm not sure if he fits as a impact bat still. And I'm not sure if the Orioles want to be in this business because of his injury concerns. But Byron Buxton, to me, 32 years old, he's getting about $15 million a year for each of the next 3 seasons. He has a full no trade clause, so he would have to waive that in order to send him to Baltimore. But when he is playing, he plays at an all-star level. He plays great defense in center. He is an impact bat. It's just keeping him on the field. And if the Orioles, we said it about Grayson Rodriguez, if the Orioles weren't confident in Grayson Rodriguez to stay healthy, can you be confident in Byron Buxton, who played 100 games for the first time in several years in 2025?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not is the answer to that. But that would be the type of thing. And I keep coming back to this, and like I will until either they do it or somebody tells me not to. But is that kind of addition one that people who are in this room with us on the other side of a set of large black curtains be like, would they say like, oh, the Orioles, that they're going for it, they're doing it? Maybe. But that's the bar. I think that's what's important to kind of just sit with. That is the bar. That will always be the bar. Like, is this a move that a team that wants to win one of the most competitive divisions baseball would make? I think so. I think that trade would qualify as that. I'm not sure that the actual impact would meet that level, though.
Right. And I think maybe if they hadn't made the Taylor Ward deal and you trade for Byron Buxton, it's just you now have so many questions in the outfield. And what we're talking about when we talk about Kyle Tucker is an exclamation point, not a question mark.
Yes.
And Byron Buxton, for all of the otherworldly talent that he brings, would still be a question mark because of his health.
Yeah. And that's not, Craig Albanaz has been talking a lot about like making the best bets you can. I'm not sure, even though you could be rewarded for it, I'm not sure that is the best bet.
Yeah. Is there anybody else off the top of your head in terms of trade candidates that would fit with Baltimore?
I haven't really dug into it in the way that that was why I said it had to be another podcast, because I hadn't even thought about it other than saying it. But I think there are fits out there, I'm sure. And I think I think I think they're creating urgency to do this in a way that I'm not sure existed even at like the beginning of this month.
Yeah. Let's touch on the pitchers real quick because there still are a ton of free agent pitchers out there. Written about on thebanner.com where you can subscribe $1 for 6 months, went through 9 right-handed candidates, 4 left-handed candidates for the open spots in the Orioles rotation. They really only have 3 sure things in the Orioles rotation. You really only have Trevor Rogers coming off his improbable most valuable Orioles season. You have Dean Kramer, who's always going to be in the Orioles rotation until the day that you die.
Yes.
And you have Kyle Bradish, who was very good in his return to the mound in 2025, and you hope that he stays healthy in 2026. That leaves 2 open spots. I don't think you should be banking on Cade Povich. I don't think you should be banking on anybody else that you have already. Not a Michael Ferret or anybody who could come up immediately. So you're going to need to add some guys. Dylan Cease is already off the board. Now, let me throw some names out here.
Okay.
Zach Gallen, Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez, Tetsuya Mai. In that echelon strike your fancy?
I like the idea of Framber Valdez a lot. I think the combination of like the durability and like the ability to eat innings, not in the Jordan Lyle sense, just like in a better sense. But he can do that because he's an elite ground ball pitcher and he knows what he's doing out there. And the Orioles, for all their, I don't want to say shenanigans, all their machinations with the dimensions of the ballpark have basically not done anything to ever benefit from making it harder to hit home runs as a right-handed hitter at that park by having like good left-handed starters. They can do that. Trevor Rogers, I should say, is a good left-handed starter. They do have one of those now, but they can play into that strength. I think that tier is a strong one. I think there's going to be those guys are going to sign for a lot of money for a reason. And I think the Orioles need to just jump the market if they want one. Now, the way that some of these pitchers work and the way that the market works, especially for the ones that are represented by Scott Boras, which I don't know specifically of those. I just know in my head as I'm thinking about them, there's a few is that like
Ranger Suarez and Tatsuya Mai are.
Yeah.
And so is Zach Gallen.
Yeah. And so he puts them on the market basically one at a time. Like you can, like, he will say, okay, let the bidding commence for Zach Gallen, and then Zach Gallen will sign. And then let the bidding commence for Ranger Suarez. And then they go. And you kind of just have to be there ready to do that when the time comes. But the risk of that is that other guys come off the market too. So you either have to win one of those sweepstakes or you have to pivot early. And I don't think the Orioles are at the position of doing either yet, but you could read a lot into what they do if they do something based on that.
Right. And the Orioles have been among the most aggressive teams so far. I mean, we are in the second week of December, and the Orioles already have signed a closer, and they've already traded Grayson Rodriguez for Taylor Ward. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, but there hasn't been a whole lot of movement in general in baseball so far. Winter meetings has not brought, as we stand here with at 1:34 on Tuesday, has not brought a whole lot more action than it has in previous years.
I will say though that they signed Ryan Helsley and then excuse me, my voice cracked like I'm 12. Devin Williams signed. Seems like Edwin Diaz signed.
Yeah,
for progressively more, but
the Orioles kickstarted that market.
They kickstarted a little bit, and they probably would have to pay more for Ryan Helsley right now than they did a week and a half ago.
Getting on top of it is the most important thing, and it's also important. I think sometimes you see a deal like, say, Ryan Helsley's 2-year, $28 million deal, and you think, all right, is that the best use of resources? Is that the best that Ryan Helsley could do on the market? Is that it's sometimes just the Orioles have a certain value point on this guy. They reach out to him. They want to sign him. If he meets a certain threshold for them and they meet a certain threshold for him, he's signed. It's not like every free agent, they haggle back and forth every last $1 million. It's not like the next best offer was 2 years, $27 million. It could have been, but it's more just the Orioles have a certain range that they want to sign a guy to. That guy has a certain range that he wants to sign. There are other fits, and they get the deal done.
Yeah.
All right. Talking about Framber Valdez, 32 years old, coming off a season which he had a 3.66 ERA, almost 9 Ks per 9, but he is a ground ball artist. He's going to keep the ball on the ground. 91st percentile in ground ball percentage each of the last 7 seasons. Obviously has the Mike Elias connection. Elias was part of the front office when Framber Valdez was signed in 2015. His rookie year was Elias's last year in Houston. That was 2018.
Yeah.
He would be an immediate upgrade to that rotation. The concerns are certainly going to be age, because he's going to be looking for a long-term deal. This is his last great chance to test free agency. And do you really want to be paying a pitcher into his, I don't know, age 37, age 38 seasons? That's a risky bet.
Yeah, but that's a bet you're making basically with everyone except for, in my end, like he's going to get a lot of money because he's younger and doesn't have pick attached and all those reasons. But
he is 2 years older than Gallen and Suarez. But
yes, but for you are going to be you're not going to feel great about the back end of any of these deals. What I'm talking about, and that has been the Orioles' sticking point. I believe Dave Rubenstein said that to Andy at spring training. That like the back of the envelope math just doesn't math to Mike, and by extension to him, and that's why he was okay with him not doing that last offseason. I think you just got to be okay with that. You just have to be okay with that. And I think if you want Framber Valdez, if you want any of these guys, you just have to be okay with it.
Right. I mean, are any of the deals that we see these position players signed going to look good in the back end? Are the last few years of Trey Turner's deal, $300 million deal with the Phillies, going to look good? The last few years of Aaron Judge's deal with the Yankees going to look good? Probably not. But what you hope is that the market will continue to grow, and that, these deals will look smaller and smaller with each passing year. But you also hope that you just win a World Series in the meantime, and you don't really care that much about how it looks in the final year of those deals.
Yeah.
Zach Gallen is an interesting case because you go back a year and you throw him into the free agent market, he would get a massive contract.
Yeah.
But he's coming off a pretty down season, a 4.83 ERA in 33 starts with the Arizona Diamondbacks. The 3 years prior to that, he posted a 3.20 ERA in 93 starts. He posts.
Yeah.
He pitches once every fifth or sixth day. You just worry if that downtick in 2025 was the beginning of something perhaps a little bit worse.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's something someone will benefit from that by getting him for less than he probably should have gotten if he turns out to be a blip and if he goes back to being the pitcher he was. But I'm not sure the Orioles are in a position to be the team that does that. Like, he kind of feels like the grocery chick to me. Like, if you stack up like put these guys in orders, like he's the one you put in the middle. Like, he was probably on the right side of the grocery stick is what I would say. Like, even if it is him, like, if the Orioles sign him, probably considered good.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about it. It would be in the context of something else. But like everyone below him on the list to me would be less good. Those are someone else's groceries. These are the ones I'm shopping for.
Yeah, no, he would definitely be somebody that they would look to in previous years and say, we could get a bargain if we get Zach Gallen.
Yeah.
And right now, I'm not sure if they're saying we need the best bargain out there. They might be saying we need the best guy out there, whatever he costs.
Yeah.
Ranger Suarez, 3.20 ERA, 8.6 Ks per 9, 26 starts last year. He doesn't throw particularly hard, throws from the left side. Fastball sits around 90 miles an hour. Excellent playoff performer. He has a 1.48 ERA in 42 and 2/3 innings in the playoffs. The concerns when you talk about Ranger Suarez are with his back. He's got this nagging back issue that has kept him out of several starts. And because his velocity is an elite, he can be a little bit streaky as well.
Yeah.
If you are signing a guy to a contract that is going to take, I don't know how many hundreds of millions, but at least $100 million, can you really sign a 30-year-old with back issues?
As somebody in my 30s, back issues, you don't want it. It's not easy to count on.
And you don't have to pitch 30 times a season.
Not that you know of.
No. You do hit the ice rink, though.
Yeah, and sometimes I play golf. Don't have to throw a baseball, though. Sometimes, those, like, dreams that you have, like, I have a test for the class I didn't go to dreams.
Yep, every night.
Sometimes I have that. Like, I gotta go out and, like, pitch an inning. Like,
I get those too.
Major League Baseball game. And
I'm usually hitting, though.
Oh, no, mine's pitching, and it's, like, below the hitting speed is what I try to get by with, just like I'm like, oh, I have an understanding of like how these pitches should move and like what direction they should go in. And
does that help?
No, yeah. I usually wake up before I get drilled with the ball coming 120 back up the pipe. But all that's to say is that is a risk that I don't know that the Baltimore Orioles team that is failed multiple players on physicals over the course of history, is going to be interested in making.
Yeah. And then the final guy that we were talking about, 28-year-old Tatsuya Imai, had a 1.92 ERA with almost 10 Ks per nine with the Cebu Lions last year in NPB. He's got a mid-90s fastball. He's got a very deep arsenal. He is not of a prototypical size for a starting pitcher. Usually, like your starting pitchers to be above 6 feet. He is at 5'11", but he checks a lot of boxes. I think the attractive thing about Imai, first off, it starts with his age. The fact that he's 28 years old and 2 years younger than Ranger Suarez and Zach Gallen and 4 years younger than Framber Valdez. But also, just it's one of those instances where because we haven't seen him yet pitch in the big leagues, it's hard to find a knock on him. You know, because we've seen Ranger Suarez in the big leagues with those back issues, because we've seen Zach Gallen struggle last year, because we've seen Framber Valdez, there are knocks that you can point to. But he is kind of, Tatsuya Imai is a little bit of a mystery box because you can project anything on him. The average Baltimore fan has not seen him pitch one inning, but they can look at that sub-2 ERA and say, this guy can be an ace for you. It's just a question of whether he actually can be.
Yeah, and you know, I think when the Orioles signed somebody else who had dominant KBO stats and Tomoyuki Sugano, that was very clearly backed up by like a below average fastball, and like he's going to command it, he's going to dot the zone, he's going to do that type of stuff. Like this is a stuff guy. This is somebody who has real, you know, who has real, like, I don't want to say nasty, but like this is a really impactful pitcher with like a really good arsenal, and you're valuing that. That is what, and that I think the Orioles probably do a good job of, well, is, you know, assessing what kind of pitch is going to scale based on how it moves and how it's located, and how that kind of picks, you know, how that sets them up for success long term. So like I feel like they probably feel comfortable in valuing internally what he could be. The issue is that he's not valued. They're not going to sign him based on what they value him internally. It's going to be, well, do they value him the most?
Right.
And that, I think the lack of draft pick compensation, I think that the age will make him more attractive to the Orioles, but again, that makes him attractive to everyone.
Yeah, and he also drew some headlines a few weeks ago by when he was asked about pitching for the Dodgers, and you know everybody's assumption is these top Japanese players like to play on the West Coast. One, because it's much closer to their home country, which is very understandable. Two, because there is, you know, a stronger, larger Japanese population, Asian population in California than there is in Baltimore. But also because, you know, Shohei Ohtani, you get a chance to play with Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto and all of these guys that are out there. You think it's just naturally a more attractive place to play for them. For Tatsuya Imai, he said it would kind of be fun to play the spoiler, to be the guy that beats, that beats that kind of team. And I think that drew a lot of headlines as well. So his market, especially because he is represented by Scott Boras, is going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, he said some funny stuff about him today.
Yeah, he said it would be in my wildest dreams I could sign this guy. That was maybe his best pun of all of the ones today.
Was it like, did he sing like Taylor Swift's Wildest Dreams as he was doing it?
He did not. And there's the Taylor Swift reference. You can check that box as well.
I am consistent.
All right. We will have plenty more coverage for you on thebanner.com where you can subscribe $1 for 6 months from winter meetings here in Orlando. We are going to get the draft lottery tonight. The Orioles have a chance to win the number 1 overall pick. Not very good chance. I think it's about 10% chance.
Yeah, like 9%, but like,
but it's real.
This is not, the math isn't going to math on this, but the fact that it would be so funny and everyone would be so mad makes it feel like a larger chance than 9%.
And it's going to be like a live studio audience. I mean, you get all the reporters in the room who are going to react to it. It's going to be hilarious.
People will probably groan because let's not kid ourselves. Like, if not the actual Baltimore Orioles, being the reason that this draft lottery exists, then you could say that like they are a branch on the tree of the train of thought that makes it exist from the Astros, and the idea of them winning it is so funny. People will be so mad. I think there's probably even a small pocket of people in Baltimore who would be mad because they would apply it through the lens of like, this team's never going to do anything, and if they have the top pick in 2026 and could have a really good prospect at X position in 2029 or 30. Why would they sign players now? Which is not how it's going to work, but it will. I'm not the only person who's going to say those words.
No, that is exactly how people are going to think.
So the fact that it will be so people will be so mad is so funny. I almost think that is why it will happen, although it truthfully is a reason for it not to.
Yeah, there's a 9% chance. We'll find out later tonight, and we'll let you know the results of that draft lottery. We'll have the Rule 5 draft as well tomorrow. So much more coverage at John Meoli is his handle. I'm at Paul Mancano and at All Banner Sports. John, do you want to tease the column that you have coming?
Yeah, let's do it. I wrote off Craig Almernaz yesterday. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, heard from the new skipper.
The skipper. Just walking around, and he was walking around in a jacket that's not unlike this one. I almost wore it yesterday. It would have been really weird if I.
Two well-dressed guys.
Yeah, he's a sharp man.
Yeah.
He thinks about what he's wearing. I could tell. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting that he relayed that the Orioles players in their calls to him, or his calls with them, basically said like we completely like lost sight of how to play winning baseball. We were basically all just trying to go up there and bang, and we were like trying to figure out our own seasons, and like as a team we didn't play good baseball, which everyone with eyes can tell like the Orioles did not play good baseball. So I thought it was interesting that was the players' assessment of it, not that it's novel that they saw what everyone else saw, but how they kind of arrived at that. I'm fascinated. I want to learn like whether they all kind of had that conversation, if they all just like sat down the last week of the season like we just were bad, or like, because this is a very individual game as it is. I think the Orioles collective spirit, remember our podcast after I was down in spring training, I was like, this means something. That wasn't the team that we saw all season.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they should go back to being total goofballs, although I would probably just enjoy that for like the lulz. I am saying that they should figure out it's something that's not the bird bath as their celebration on the water related stuff. I am saying that. But yeah, I am.
Goodbye, Mr. Slash.
He can pivot his skills. I don't know, Mr. Safari. Like maybe they like get some like an elephant head,
some zoo animals. Yeah, beavers, cows.
Yeah, and they could do safari. I can do this for days. I'll just make up new celebrations. But I think that this team's superpower, if to the extent they're going to have one, is going to be that like togetherness, and like the
power of friendship.
The power of friendship, and they played poorly individually, in that extended to the team itself. And I think it's a unique approach to being like, if we play good baseball, I will play good baseball, and if I play good baseball, and everyone can count on me to play good baseball, we can play good baseball. And that felt meaningful to me.
Yeah. John's newsletter, Inside the Dugout, dropping soon. Can't wait to read it. Thanks so much for tuning in. Rate, review, subscribe. Rate us a 5-star review of the Banner Baseball Show on Apple Podcasts, and I'll read it out here on the show. For John Meoli, I'm Paul Mancano. Thanks so much for tuning in. If we break